So, Bobby, you're out in California, and there's quite a story coming out with some of the referendums there. There's a referendum that is on the ballot in California, Proposition 61. Tell us about this referendum. This story is pretty crazy, it seems to me.
Yeah, there's a proposition on the ballot, Proposition 61, which would allow hospitals to require collective bargaining power to negotiate for better rates from pharmaceutical companies on the price of their pharmaceuticals. Now, at this point, nobody can do that. The only group that's allowed to do that is the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the VA, because it actually requires it allows bidding for its purchasing of pharmaceuticals, pays 42% less than Medicare for its pharmaceuticals. This new proposition would allow Medicare and everybody else in California to have the same kind of deal. So the weird thing about this article is the people who have come out against this. Everybody should be for it. But the people who've come out against it have been the biggest LGBT groups in San Francisco.
Why?
The Harvey Milk Group, the Alice B. Toklas Group, the NAACP. It's all the right wing. The Chamber of Commerce and all of those guys are against it, but also all of these liberal groups. And it is extraordinary that the Latino Voter Guide, the California Senior Advocates, all of these people have taken money from Pharma in order to support this. The Coalition for Literacy, the California Voter Guide, a group called the Voter Guide Slate Cards, all of them receive drug industry money in order and then the American Legion of California, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Vietnam veterans, the people who actually would be paying less, their members would be paying less for drugs, but their leadership is taking this money from the pharmaceutical industry and telling people that this proposition will raise their drug prices.
Yeah,
and it's a lie.
Let me add to it a little bit, Sam, if I can.
Please.
The backstory on first of all, it's remarkable that they're spreading around money to those organizations, but it's not remarkable that they're spreading around so much money. Here's what people don't understand about the pharmaceutical industry. For years and years, the pharmaceutical industry convinced everybody that they had to have a big markup because of research and development. Well, all of a sudden, people started really investigating. People like me who were suing the pharmaceutical companies for things like Yaz and Pradaxa and on and on and on. We started taking a look at it, and we started taking depositions to find out what the markups are. We saw markups anywhere from 6,000% to 142,000% on pharmaceuticals. Now, the markup, most 80% of that money went back into either CEO bonuses or marketing the product. Very little of it has to do with research and development. And the way I guess, Bobby, that they're selling this there is to tie in the research and development argument and saying this is going to raise your this is going to raise your cost of pharmaceuticals. It is the most unchecked, corrupt industry, probably next to Wall Street, that we've ever dealt with as an attorney who deals with corrupt corporations all the time. But I am blown away, Bobby, by the fact that it's actually taking hold with the organizations that you described.
Well, it's $109 million they've spread around, right?
They've given $109 million to these groups, and there's a recent study that found, and here's why, $109 million is a good investment for them. There's a recent federal study that found that Medicare would save $16 billion annually by being allowed to negotiate for lower rates. The chief executive, the CEO of Eli Lilly, John Legleiter, had a conference call on Tuesday, Pap, and he was trying to reassure investors who are worried about this Proposition 61, and he pledged that he said, I'm doing, quote, everything in my power to stop Prop 61. His company, by the way, you know this, has been in the news recently for price gouging, especially for the insulin medicine, the Humulin RU 500 insulin medicine, that it marked up 325% between 2010 and 2015. Anyway, here's a quote from Prop 61. We're fighting that tooth and nail in California, he said. Quote, we have a pretty good big campaign underway to shift voters toward a position of being against it, and we're using a whole variety of techniques, end quote. So,
wow, doesn't that sound like tobacco? Hey, Bobby, let me ask you, what are the numbers looking like?
I don't know. You know, you can't. It's hard to find polling on propositions because nobody really has the money to take them. So
yeah.
And I can tell you from living in California, Cheryl. I actually vote in New York, but Cheryl votes in California, and she said, we watch on TV every night these advertisements come on, and they're all deceptive. You don't know who, is Proposition 56, 57, 58, 51. They sound good or they sound bad, but you can't tell. And the people who are against them, it'll say the teachers are against this or whatever. There's no way to tell. And then it's very, very dense reading. And, she's kind of like, I really need somebody to tell me what to do before I go in there because I don't know which of these are good or which is bad.
And that's why these pharmaceutical knows that you go and you pay off all these groups that would provide the signal for voters who don't have the time.
Guides. They provide the voter guides, and they are selling out the people of California for their own little issues. Some of them are actually taking money for themselves.
Wow. And let me also, let's take a little bit of a 30,000 foot view here, because something like this is an existential threat to the business model of the pharmaceutical industry, because they know if in California 2 or 3 years down the road after the passing of a proposition like this, that there's going to be data, hard data, that this money could be saved in every state across the country. It's also going to provide data that would further the argument that we should have things like Medicare buy-in. We should have more of a single-payer system in this country, because it does exactly this. It allows both in volume, as a volume buyer, they have more leverage, and they can they can actually negotiate these prices down. And what's also stunning to me is that there is, what emerges from both the cases that you two bring against companies like this and other companies in other industries, and this dynamic here where they are keeping inflated prices by virtue of the political process, by buying people out. And they know they can spend $109 million this year.
Drop in the bucket,
and they amortize that over the course of however many years they will have to charge these exorbitant prices for drugs that are much less to develop, not just to sell, but to develop even. It really is quite stunning. But I guess the message to those of our listeners in California is, don't listen to those normal signifiers, because unless they have told you whether or not they've taken money from those who are fighting Proposition 61, because this is an opportunity for Californians to get drugs at the prices that they should be, rather than what the drug companies can gouge from people who are ill.